On the edge of a quiet town, a woman walked the streets alone, her clothes worn, her hands tired, and her eyes heavy with years of struggle. To those who passed her by, she was just another poor homeless mother, forgotten by the world and abandoned by the very children she once sacrificed everything for. Neighbors whispered about her fall from grace, wondering how a woman who once had so much love around her could be left to suffer in silence. Yet no one knew that behind her silence lay a secret worth more than gold, a hidden inheritance of 60 million that could have changed everything. Her children, blinded by pride and greed, saw only her hardship and turned away, believing she had nothing left to offer. They never stopped to ask why fate had brought her so low or what truth she carried quietly in her heart. While they built their own lives, ignoring her cries, destiny was writing a story far greater than they could ever imagine. Because the day would come when the truth of her inheritance would surface, shaking their world to its core. And when it did, the question would remain, would it be too late for them to make things right? Years before she was left to wander the streets, this woman had been the heart of her family. She worked day and night to feed her children, sewing clothes by candlelight, selling whatever she could to keep food on the table. Her love was endless, but in her children's eyes, it was never enough. As they grew older, they dreamed of wealth, status, and a better life, slowly pulling away from the woman who had given them everything she had. They mistook her quiet strength for weakness, and when her hardships grew heavier, they left her behind. What they never knew was that their mother's past held secrets she never spoke of. Long ago, she had been connected to a wealthy family line, one that carried land, property, and fortunes hidden away from public eyes. Papers existed, signed and sealed, naming her the rightful heir to an inheritance worth 60 million. But she kept it locked away, never speaking of it, believing that love and loyalty mattered more than money. Now, as she walked among strangers, carrying only memories and pain, the truth of her fortune waited quietly in the shadows. And when that truth would rise, it promised to expose not only her hidden wealth but also the choices her children made. Would they be ready to face what they abandoned? Her children went on with their lives as if she no longer existed. The eldest son became a businessman, proud of his growing success, yet haunted by a restlessness he could not explain. The daughter, once gentle and kind, now sought acceptance in high society, constantly trying to prove she was more than her humble beginnings. The youngest, still struggling to find his way, often wondered why he felt an emptiness even though he claimed to have broken free from his mother's burden. None of them realized that the very woman they cast aside held the key to everything they were searching for. Meanwhile, whispers began to stir in the town. An old friend of their mother had stumbled upon a piece of paper, a clue pointing to her connection with a wealthy estate long forgotten. The friend debated whether to bring it forward, torn between loyalty to the woman and fear of stirring conflict with her children. Each day that passed only deepened the mystery, as others who knew fragments of her past began piecing together the puzzle. At the same time, their mother wrestled with her own silence. She could reveal the inheritance, yet she chose not to, hoping her children might one day value love above riches. But destiny rarely waits, and soon the secrets of the past threatened to collide with the lives her children had so carefully built. Rumors of the hidden inheritance began to spread beyond the small town, reaching ears that should never have known. The eldest son heard whispers at a business gathering, a careless remark about land deeds connected to his mother's name. Shocked and unsettled, he brushed it off, yet the thought haunted him. Could it be true that the mother he abandoned held something so valuable? His sister, too, began hearing hints from acquaintances who spoke of her mother's mysterious past. The idea unsettled her, but she buried it beneath layers of pride, unwilling to face what she had tried so hard to forget. The youngest son, however, could not ignore the whispers. Something inside him stirred a mix of guilt and curiosity, pushing him to search for the truth. He began visiting places his mother once worked, asking quiet questions, uncovering small pieces of her hidden life. Each clue led him closer, and yet the more he discovered, the heavier his heart grew. Meanwhile, their mother remained silent, her frail frame carrying secrets larger than her suffering. She watched from the shadows, knowing that sooner or later, the truth would crash into her children's carefully built worlds. Tension thickened like a storm cloud ready to break, and with every passing day, it became clear, when the inheritance was revealed, it would not just change their lives, it would test the very core of who they truly were. Just as the whispers of the 60 million inheritance began to weigh heavily on her children, another revelation surfaced, one that no one expected. The old family estate, believed to have been lost decades ago, was not only intact but also under dispute. A distant relative had quietly begun legal proceedings, claiming the fortune and properties as their own. This second twist threw everything into chaos, and suddenly the inheritance was no longer a hidden secret but a contested prize. The eldest son, sensing both opportunity and threat, felt his pride crumble under the thought that strangers could claim what might rightfully belong to his mother. The daughter, who had built her life on appearances, feared that the scandal would expose her family's abandonment, ruining the fragile image she had worked so hard to maintain. The youngest, still torn between guilt and truth, realized he might be the only one willing to face his mother and uncover what really belonged to her. Meanwhile, the mother herself felt the weight of time pressing harder. She had kept the inheritance hidden to test the loyalty of her children, but now outside forces were closing in. The fortune that once seemed like a blessing was quickly becoming a storm. And as the battle lines began to form, one question lingered: would the truth unite the family, or tear them apart forever? The storm finally broke when the truth could no longer be hidden. Summoned to a hearing about the inheritance, the children arrived restless and divided, each carrying their own guilt and fear. To their shock, their frail mother was there too, seated quietly at the center, holding the very documents that proved the estate and the 60 million fortune were hers by right. The room fell silent as the judge read her name aloud, and in that moment, the children realized what they had abandoned. The eldest son felt his pride collapse into shame, the daughter's carefully built image cracked under the weight of truth, and the youngest bowed his head, unable to stop the tears that came. But just as it seemed the inheritance would finally pass to them through their mother's forgiveness, she rose and spoke words none of them expected. She revealed she had already made arrangements, leaving the fortune not in their names, but in a foundation for the homeless and forgotten, those who, like her, had once been left behind. Gasps filled the room as her children struggled to understand. The 60 million they thought would secure their future was gone, redirected toward strangers. Yet in that final twist, the true inheritance she left them was not wealth, but a painful lesson that love and loyalty could never be measured in money. The decision stunned her children, but deep down they knew it was fair. They had turned away when she needed them most, and now the fortune would go to those who truly understood suffering. The eldest son left the hearing in silence, forced to face the emptiness of his pride. The daughter, shaken by the loss of her image and status, realized that no amount of wealth could cover the wound of abandonment. The youngest, though heartbroken, felt something different stirring within him. He saw in his mother's eyes not anger, but a quiet strength that reminded him of all she had endured for them. The town soon learned of her decision, and whispers turned into admiration. People who once looked past her now spoke of her as a woman of rare courage, someone who chose compassion over bitterness. The foundation she created began to help countless others, giving food, shelter, and dignity to those forgotten by their own families. Though her children struggled to live with their choices, they could not escape the truth: their real inheritance was the lesson she left behind. Love, loyalty, and humanity were worth far more than 60 million. And while money fades, her story remained, a reminder that what we choose in moments of hardship defines us forever.